I went to do the makeup of a bride, and her father said to me, "So what do you do?" And I said, "This is what I do." And he says, "You need to go and get a job."
As you speak, less than 1% of Nigerian entrepreneurs end up building a business that even lasts 30 years. Why were you different?
I'm not building just for today. And the minute you shift your thinking around building for the future, the chances are the decisions you make are more long-term driven than short-term. What I knew for sure was that I wanted this business to exist long after all the current operators are no longer in the business. I want all of us to be able to look back and say,
We built that.
We built that.
For you at House of Tara, particularly in the creative space, where it seems as though structure is perceived as something that stifles creativity, how were you able to move from beating one face to beating faces of hundreds of brides over a weekend and ensuring that the quality still remains the same?
The first 2 days when somebody joins the organization, it's the most powerful time of impartition. First, it was the mindset around, I'm going to create a vision that makes it attractive for people to join, but I'm going to sell the vision to people so that they can see their role in it. Every employee of House of Tara recites the company vision every single day.
That's interesting.
It's not enough to be an entrepreneur in Nigeria. You have to be a value school. Every opportunity you have, you take it to teach, reiterate, to create and sustain culture. You can't keep quiet.
Hi, TFD.
Hi, the Olushola.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure.
This is one of the conversations that I've been itching to have for the longest. I see you as a barrier shifter. I like to call it that way. You've broken barriers time and again. And I think for me, one of the most fascinating ones is the fact that you've been able to build a business that not only thrived, but a business that has a solid succession plan. So for context, right? Very rarely do you find African businesses founded by Africans not only grow to thrive across 2 decades and beyond, but also one that can outlive its founder. You are an embodiment of this feat, right? How do you feel? A couple of months ago, you handed over operations and leadership of House of Tara, and here you are. How accomplished do you feel right now?
I think initially, and thank you for that question, it started with, first of all, a sense of gratitude. And the gratitude was very strong and sobering. And why? Because it was a dream. It was once a dream. It was a dream that I would be able to get a successor. It was a dream that the business will outlive me. It was a dream that if I stepped out, or I wanted to step out, that I will A, find a successor, B, that the business will still be viable at the time, and 3, that I would have a life after House of Tara, because I started as very young. I started in my early 20s. So this is all I've known. And the question is, if I step out, will I be able to do something else other than House of Tara? Since my entire identity, my entire sense of accomplishment has been tied to this company. Oftentimes when I walk around, people will say, you look familiar, are you House of Tara? As though House of Tara is my name, right? So I walked away feeling very, very full of gratitude that this was a dream. And I think anytime you have a dream and you're able to accomplish it, you still remember your humanity, that you are flesh and you are blood, but that you were able to do this. I think that's what made it have a strong sense of gratitude. But there was also another sense of trepidation. Trepidation because there were 2 things. Number one, my current MD often says, these are big shoes to fill. And I can understand why. A, because this is a pioneering business. It's also a very well-loved brand. The people feel a sense of ownership over House of Tara. A, because sometimes it was the first makeup product that they used or that their mothers used and they saw, or I was the first entrepreneur that they knew. So there's a strong sense in which people are attached to the brand. And she wondered if she'll gain acceptance, right? And the trepidation was, would she be able to step into it? Which is why the announcement was made 1 year after. There's also trepidation around, even internally, like within the organization itself. How will people adjust to their beloved TFD, and to now a new person leading the organization? So those were real feelings. But I think overall, I am super grateful that I got the chance to build something that I could hand over. And I also got the chance to be able to look back and say, this was a dream, and that dream has become a reality.
I'm so excited, not just by all that you've said, but also see how excited you are talking about it. Before I talk about the structure you had to put in place, talking about people, systems, and many more things, let me date back a bit. A whole lot of people do not know you started House of Tara at the age of, I think, 21. That's very impressive. But for me, it's not that you started something at 21. It's that you went to what I would like to call an uncharted territory, a path that no other person had gone before. For context, 3 decades ago in Nigeria, in the mid-1990s, makeups were not stuff that were quote and unquote popular. In fact, few brides did it at the time. And almost no other party goer did makeups. For a culture where almost everybody was talking a lot about carrying your face the way it is to events to show that you have natural beauty and many more things, you decided to birth something. And for me, it's very interesting. I'm going to tell you why this is quite interesting to me. At the age of 21, right, you would more or less like to, if at all you're starting something, start something that other people have already been doing, right? So at least it increases your chances of succeeding, okay? And then you can obviously learn from the mistakes of other people. But then you were here at 21, starting something no other person had done. I want you to talk me through that process. That's number one. But secondly, had you always been the type of person who had enough audacity to do things no one had done before? Tell me, why makeup? How did you build such an audacious spirit at a young age? Was mommy and daddy always so audacious? What were your mirrors, your early mirrors? What were the mirrors of possibilities you saw? Which mentors pushed you? What exactly? How was it?
I'd like to take a very brief moment from this conversation to let you know how important and valued your viewership is. Thank you for watching. But also, it doesn't stop there. Apart from your viewership, you could actually help us reach more people simply by liking this video and by subscribing and also turning on your post notification, not only to ensure that you're the first person to know when next we drop another conversation, but also because by doing so, you'll be helping us reach more people. Kindly do so. I'm waiting. Thank you very much.
So very early on, it was my faith. And I'll explain what I mean by my faith. I was raised in a group, within a group. There was a medical doctor who was very, very fascinated by the study of the Bible. He was a young doctor. He just started practicing as a medical doctor. He had a small fellowship, and he would invite young people to come to the fellowship. T.Y. Bello was one of the young people he used to invite.
Wow.
And would often go to this flat in 1004 at that time and sit on the floor, and he would just share from the Bible. And his intention was to teach faith. And faith is really equal to audacity. And what he taught us was the power of faith and what faith could do. And faith in God, not just faith in yourself, not just faith in anything. And I think when you have faith in God, God is big, is huge. So number one, you become audacious, you become bold. You're almost unfrightened. First of all, as a young person, most young people are generally fearless. When we are younger, we are, more inclined to do things because that's part of being young, right? You're adventurous, you explore. But also, I think adding to the fact that I had access to the Bible, I had access to understanding the power of the Word of God. I had access to understanding how the Word of God can build faith in you. And that gave me the fire, the knowing, the certainty that if I started something, I would succeed at it. There were enough scriptures that I was taught, that I discovered on my own, that became my persuasion. Until today, I often get into a crossroad and then I just look for one scripture and meditate on it. Today, meditation has become a thing. But at the time, what was meditation to us? It was to think about something over and over again. And when you think about it enough time, you become emboldened. And that's where the boldness came from. So I was bold. I was bold that I was going to get married early. I was bold enough to know I was going to get married to a Christian man who was committed to God. I was bold enough to know that If I started a business, I would succeed at it. Whatever it was I went into, this was based on my faith, nothing else. On the second note, my parents were, I think in a sense, unusual. My mom studied fine arts at Auchi Polytechnic. My stepmother, actually. I was raised by stepmom. And my father studied history at the University of Cambridge. So they were not a conventional doctor and the likes. And my mom being a fine artist, I think that could have inspired some things. She worked at the National Art Theatre. And as a teenager, as a young child, I would go to the National Art Theatre in the summers and walk around presentations and exhibitions of some of the Nigerians, Bruce Onogwekweya to the seven twins, and see their artworks. That could have influenced my desire to do something that's unusual. Being exposed to that. My mom often created adire at home. So they would buy the fabric, they would ask us to tie it, we'll put it in the dye. This was just things that you did with your hand. And oftentimes the cushions in the house, the throw pillows would be from adire. So I think seeing that could have also, because imaging is so important and how children are raised. I saw that. But I also saw my mom's transformation with makeup. I saw her love for the fine things of life. She was very stylish. Go to the salon, every Saturday, have her hair styled, have her nails done. I saw her sit in front of her dressing mirror and basically wear makeup, right? She's very well traveled, her stiletto heels. I can even see the image of it as I'm speaking right now. Her M&B books. But I think all that was part of the things that I admired. So I could see the transformation of what makeup did for her, how it also impacted even her sense of maybe the way she walked after makeup was done. But one of the most significant shifts was when I got the chance to work just before I got into university at a perfume store here in Lagos. And the perfume store was probably one of the first perfume stores in Nigeria at a mall called Payless 3. So this is where Adiola Deco is now. Okay. There's a big shopping complex there. It used to be called Payless 3. And that store was there. And the woman who owned the store was selling perfumes, but she also had makeup by the side. And so as an adventurous young child, when we sold perfumes, I would also take makeup and also try and sell. And the more I applied it for the customers, the more they bought. And so even though makeup was not her primary business, it became one of her primary businesses simply because of what I saw was a transition. If you test it on the customer likes it. The minute they like it, then they want to buy. And the more I did that, the more we sold. And I saw how it made the owner of the business happy. I saw how it made the clients happy as well. And by the time I got into university, it became a skill that I had now developed and I could make money from it. And that's how this makeup industry started.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for giving me some context in terms of the background and all. But let's talk about House of Tara itself now. You were about to kick off something without any roadmap or any precedent whatsoever. What were the first 3 things you had to put in place starting out House of Tara? On one hand, you had to take a leaf from the books of other businesses that were already thriving, but then narrowing it down to the context of makeup in and of itself, without any roadmap or any precedent. What did you have to do?
So I don't know that there was even a roadmap for me. I was testing, and as I went along, I found what worked. The first thing was I started with my bridal makeup. So, and how did that happen? It was because I just decided that the people who were likely to find value in this service were people who were getting married. And so I was now in university, and as a law student, we had law dinner. And law dinner is when law students dress up in their white and black and generally go for these dinners that is prestigious to law students, get dressed. And I started to offer some of my classmates, I'll do your makeup for you. And some of them liked it. And they would say, okay, I'm now willing to even pay. So when they started paying, I realized, okay, this could potentially be a business. The question is it my students where we do law dinners once a semester? That can be a real business. But I got the chance to say, why don't I even start this for people who are getting married? I'm sure it was a light bulb moment, a conversation with someone that made me realize that this was a possibility. And the first bride I had, I went to do a test run for her. I just told my classmates, do you know anyone getting married? Now, if you're a student in university, the chances are you may have a sibling who's older than you, whose chances are, if you are the last child, you may have an older sister who's graduated, about to get married. So the chances are, if you're in school, you may know someone, cousin or whatever, who's getting married. And so I'd ask my classmates, and soon enough, somebody would say, well, I know someone who's getting married. And I got this chance to go to this house. The person was getting married that weekend. And I went and did a test run. In my boldness, I wasn't afraid. I just said, oh, this is what I do. I'm a makeup artist. I called myself that. And she said, okay, that's interesting. We can do a trial. So I did a trial and I convinced her that I should come back on Saturday to do it. And I did convince her. And I think when you convince someone, it builds your confidence. So I became even more confident. On the Saturday at the time, we used to have this thing called environmental sanitation, which meant that you couldn't drive out of your house until after a particular time of the day. So obviously I wasn't conversant enough to realize that if I didn't leave by a particular time, I would lose the opportunity to get there on time. So I got to our house late. But what tripped me was the fact that when I arrived, she was about to get into the car to leave. And she said, see what they did to my face. My interpretation of that was she could have done better than the person who did my face. Because often when you're getting married, it's an auntie or someone who does it. But because there was a trial, and she'd seen the trial, here it was, she was thinking, this is what I'm going to look like. And now that's not the image she was saying. So there was disappointment. I was disappointed in myself, but also encouraged by that. And so I went with her all the way to church and worked on it while between the service, just before she went.
And so you were able to
fix the situation. But that set a very strong sign to me that I was on the right path. I think the second bride I had was now the daughter of the chief of naval staff.
Okay. See, you were already bagging big clients.
And it was a huge wedding that was held at TBS. Yeah, so you can imagine 27 years ago at TBS for a wedding. You can imagine how massive that would have been. Actually, I think the chief of naval staff at the time in Nigeria was probably maybe the same thing would be maybe the third highest person in the country. Yeah. So all the kings from across Nigeria were there. Everyone who was there. She was young. She just graduated from the University of Lagos, and she had a bridal train of about 12 people. I did that makeup. I did the makeup, the nikai, because it was a Muslim wedding, the night party. It's very excellent outing. But what was then interesting was that the people who were on the bridal train were next in line in terms of getting married. And there were many. There were like 12. So from there, those 12 people became
was a chain reaction.
Correct.
All of them just...
Yes. And that's how...
And that was how...
I launched.
Okay. I think this just further reinforces my belief in the statement that the best way to market your product and the best way to build credibility is by doing a damn good job. Mm-hmm. And I think that's exactly the case with you. But before I get back to more details on House of Tara and how you began to amass more customers, I wanted to talk about how you were able to handle the prestige issue. I'll explain. You were training to be a legal luminary. Mm-hmm. Whether you like it or not, in the 1990s, and even up until the 2000s, there were only 3 major occupations that existed for the African parents. You either were going to be a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer. I was raised by 2 out of those 3. My dad was a lawyer. Bless his soul. He died when I was 7. My mom was an engineer. Even now, she's abandoned it to go into full-time catering several years ago. And growing up, my brother studied computer science. I was supposed to be the lawyer child because I was the guy who liked to talk when I was younger. And so I'm saying all of these because here you were. You were finally living the dream of your African parents. My daughter's going to be a lawyer. She's going to be this, she's going to be that. And then right after school, you're saying you're about to start beating people's faces. What's that? Now, thankfully, almost 3 decades after, thanks to you and your indefatigableness in moving the culture and ensuring that you've, through hard work, brought more class to the makeup industry. A lot of people can now boldly say they're makeup artists. A lot of people can now boldly say, I beat faces for a living. I own a chain of makeup businesses. I see a lot of graduates now become makeup artists, and that's brilliant. But someone had to pave the way for them, and that was you. But because there was no one to pave the way for you, it meant that you were walking into a new industry that wasn't prestigious in any way whatsoever. How did you handle that? I'm really interested. First and foremost, how did you handle telling mommy and daddy, okay, despite all the money you spent, you went to Lagos State University. Despite all the money you spent for me going to LASU, right? I want to start beating faces for a living.
Yes.
Talk me through that.
I didn't have to do that.
Wow.
I didn't have to convince my parents. I think a few things. Number one, I was that child that was clear about what I wanted. And I have one child like that now, where, when you are, as a young person, when you grow and have a very intimate relationship with God, your parents honor that. They honor a child who decides that they want to walk with God. And oftentimes they see the result of it. So if I came and I said I wanted to marry someone, the chances are my parents are not going to say, they're not going to say no, because they feel like I've been discipled enough to be able to tell. The same way with business. When I started, I didn't have that opposition. My very first makeup studio was close to law school. Yeah. I paid the rent of
Your very first makeup studio was close to law school, Victoria Island?
Correct. And I was having...
How old were you?
I was probably 26.
What?
Yes. I renovated the building, and when my mom walked in, she said, "I've built a house for the landlord." Because, makeup studio was not a concept. So it meant that I had to envision what I felt it should look like. If I'm saying it's a studio, what does studio mean? If I say I'm a makeup artist, I'm an artist, what would a studio look like? So I had to envision that, but then also create it in a building. It meant I had to break walls. I had to tell the bricklayer, come in today. So when she saw what I had done in the place, she knew that this was not what the landlord did. She knew that nobody had thought about a makeup studio. And all she could think to herself, oh my God, this child of mine has built a house for a landlord, because I basically raised the profile of that building. Going back to audacity and boldness, that's the thing, combination of youth and faith. The courage to do. Today, at 48, if I want to do, I will process 100 times. So there was no opposition from my parents. However, guess where there was opposition?
Tell me.
It was parents of clients.
Tara, she waste a year.
Oh my gosh. I remember this vividly. I went to do the makeup of a bride, and my father said to me, "So what do you do?" And I said, "This is what I do." And he says, "You need to go and get a job." You need to go and get a job. Poor daddy didn't know that his daughter probably had lied to him that she paid for the makeup, because he probably paid for it without knowing. Because at the time, you couldn't tell your parents you were paying for makeup. You probably just say the wedding dress, hair, and add it to the bill so that you can pay for it, because it didn't make
You're
sense
part
to
of
say
miscellaneous.
exactly, miscellaneous, just some kind of something else in the bill. But at this time, I had now begun to charge, I think, maybe upwards of 30,000 naira, maybe 15,000 naira for the wedding engagement, and then for the white wedding as well. And there were a few people here and there.
You were charging that much?
Yes,
I
could charge. Yes.
1999.
Yes. But it's home service, though. You have to go to
Ma'am,
what
ma'am, if I'm checking for inflation,
yes,
I'm supposed to be doing 30x, if I'm not mistaken. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, for context, I think for the people who are probably watching this at the moment, if this was far back 1999 and you were charging roughly 30,000 naira, the average salaries of earners back at the time, I mean, even people who were upper middle class towards upper class then, if they took home 50,000, was huge money.
Monthly.
Per month.
Yeah.
And then you were already charging for a 2-day service.
Yes.
30,000.
Yes. Yeah.
That's interesting.
But it also showed what was possible. That people were placing more and more value in it. But I also think that prestige is what you bring to it. In my case, because I saw the resistance publicly, I realized that the next generation of makeup artists who were coming needed to be able to tell their parents. I didn't have that problem, but I knew that they would have the problem. To be able to convince their parents that this is a respectable profession. And so I embarked on quite a few things. Number one, I became conscious about how I positioned myself, how I positioned myself when I was serving customers, and started organizing conferences like Makeup in Nigeria conference. And the Makeup in Nigeria conference had partnerships from the banks. We had speakers from corporate. We had about, the last Makeup in Nigeria conference we hosted was at Oriental Hotel. And we had over 800 makeup artists from across the country and the world. We had someone from Kenya who also attended. And the idea behind that kind of event was for, yet again, imagery. It's for parents to see these are the people who are running the makeup industry. This person is a lawyer. That person, now there were more and more people who had come into the industry, but it became clear and important and we needed to position the industry in a more professional manner. It also determined how, when I started to put policies in place within House of Tara, I became very conscious about how employees who came to work at House of Tara saw themselves and dressed, spoke. Professionalism became one of our key values as a business because we're positioning for the industry. We're positioning the industry as a professional industry. And not long after, we started hearing about chemical engineers who graduated and became makeup artists. And less people, it's like how football is now, where you've seen enough successful footballers for parents to now say, well, it's okay.
Project Mbappe, Project Neymar, Project Messi.
Correct. So if Tara, who studied law and is now doing well, now has vocations, and they can reference Tara as an example. And this was what I became because I had to think beyond just me. I had to start thinking legacy. I had to start thinking industry.
What does legacy mean to you?
It's a few things. Number one, it's what is my purpose and how do I want to be remembered that is tied to my purpose? That's legacy for me. One of the things that I'm very clear about my purpose is to empower. And empowered through whatever my messaging at the time, because that changes from time to time. For now, if anything happens to me, my legacy will be tied to getting more entrepreneurs across the continent to build their businesses beyond themselves.
That's very profound. Before I get back into your journey with House of Tara, I think you're very insightful. And you're also a very good elocutor. And I need to ask, have you always been a fantastic communicator? Or did you ever have to deliberately improve on that area? Because I just find you're not breaking a sweat. You're dropping gem out without breaking a sweat. And as someone who tends to get in communication and conversations with a whole lot of people time in and out, I think very few people are this insightful, to be honest. What have you had to do to improve in that area?
So first of all, I would say, it's a gift. It's something that I was gifted. I remember in secondary school, I used to get on the stage in secondary school and once a week teach a concept. And the school gave me permission to do so, and I was doing it. And I think the reason why they could give me that opportunity to do so was because of this gift of being able to articulate my thoughts. I think that's one. And then two, I'm also gifted as a teacher. It's one of my giftings. So the more you teach, the better you become at articulating your thoughts over and over again. And I've been teaching for a very, very, very long time. I always take the opportunity to teach. And I think last year I'm married to someone who you could consider one of the most gifted
speakers. I just a side note. Just a side note. Like I said earlier, I'm very privileged to speak around the country, And in most cases, right, many of the planners try to put my session towards the end to make my session, make the events lead to a climax and many more times. Now, my team noticed that a lot when we attend events, and then it puts some pressure, although no pressure on me, to always ensure that I tie everything up and it's that. But on a particular day, I was put on the same speaker list as your husband. I can't explain. I just can't explain. I was supposed to come right after him. And when he began to speak, I just looked at him. And I always tell people this, that whenever you see people doing stuff you really love to do and performing so excellently, it's one of two things that happens. You're either inspired or intimidated.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Intimidation in many times leads to envy, and then you're like, ew, what's up? Inspiration means you see the person as a mirror of possibilities. For FD, I had to tell him, sir, it's both. Because I was like, how do I move from here? How do I even come up after this? He is one of the most inspiring speakers I have ever had the privilege
as well.
of listening to. From beginning to the end, it was awesome.
Yes.
And I often like to say that the greatest influence on the life of anyone who is married is their partners.
Yes. Yes.
Before I get into almost every other thing, I think now that we've brought him up, how has being married to the great Fela-Durotoye contributed to your success, not just as the founder of House of Tara, but into you becoming the complete woman that we all know and celebrate?
I think it's significant. It's significant, and both ways, right?
Yeah.
We both influence each other significantly. First and foremost, as an entrepreneur, you also know that he has a background as a business consultant. So that was a huge influence. By the time I was married to him, he already had his MBA, and he was very passionate about entrepreneurship. So I had his head with me as I was journeying on my entrepreneurial journey. But secondly, he also comes from a family of very successful women. Yeah. So he's accustomed to many, he's accustomed to women who are very accomplished. His mother was one of the very first female geologists in Nigeria. His experience of his mom was somebody who, for example, went on sabbatical for a year in Belgium and left them with their grandmother, and they only were able to go and spend time with her in the summer of one of those years where she was on sabbatical in Belgium. She was a speaker. So she traveled around the world speaking on Africa and geology and all of that. Recently, someone sent us some of a thesis that she had written, right? And they were honoring her in, I think, University of Ibadan for the work that she's done. She's passed away many, many years. So he was accustomed to accomplished women. And so any woman who was going to marry Fela would probably be someone who he would fuel their fire so that they can become all that they can be. And I think in a sense, that's an addition. My sister-in-law, that's my husband's only sister, is also a very well accomplished doctor, gynecologist, and a quality specialist. And what I found is when, yet again, mirror and imagery, when children are exposed to certain things, it shapes how they see the world. I think being married to Fela also has definitely added to. I was already driven by the time, especially because what I shared with you earlier about my faith walk. I had clarity as to what my destiny would look like in a sense. I had revelations that were spiritual, and so by the time I was getting married, it was clear. I also had a passion about my family life, what it was going to look like, what my children were going to be like. These were things I came into the marriage with. And I remember him thinking to himself, you're so young, or you're like an old person. These are some of the things he used to say to me to tease me when we first met, because he's 6 years older than me. But I came very mature, and that maturity comes with exposure to my faith and how I see the world. But it's also a significant influence because A, he was older, B, he was a consultant, number 3, he's a public speaker more so than I am, because it's something that he does professionally and he has done for many, many years. Very passionate. And of course, I've put in some work in improving my communication, and I think it's part of the things that I wanted to do when I transitioned from House of Tara. And so I became more clear around what is my message and how do I want to deliver it. Fela is great, but he has a style.
Yeah,
I also have my style, and I now had to sit down to say, what is the framework of my style of delivering that I enjoy? A, from the stage, but also I see that is impactful to the audience. I sat down and shaped it. One of the first things I decided I must always do when I'm on stage is to smile. So if you see any of my notes, the word smile is at the top of it because I have found it works, right? That's for me. So I found that. I found storytelling. So I often have to have stories, stats, and words, quotes. And I build that around my communication. So over time in practicing that, I've improved more and more. But I still think that there is room for more improvements.
Amazing.
But thank you for the compliment.
Amazing. And yeah, so I think to further buttress what you said, having known FD and also yourself, I think one of the things that makes what you both share admirable to me is that you guys are so awesome as a team, yet your individuality is evident in the sense that your uniqueness is evident. No one is swallowing the other. And I think it's so brilliant. I think very importantly that we can hold the both of you and say, these are the Fela-Durotoyes. However, we can still look at you and say, this is Tara Fela-Durotoye and this is Fela-Durotoye himself. I say this because not many people or not many couples have been able to build that kind of thing. And I think it's so important. And it kind of leads me to ask another question. You got married to him, if I'm not mistaken, at the age of 24. He was about 30. He was already growing in his career. You were already pushing yours. Have there been moments where, I hope I phrase it properly, where because you are two very ambitious people on the journey through the success ladder, one of you has had to maybe temporarily hold back a bit for the other to push up and then take turns, maybe perhaps because of availability, attending to family needs, or I hope you get what I mean.
I do get what you mean, but I think in our own case, it's different. Everybody's ambition is each other's ambition. So when I had this dream, for example, of building Beyond You Institute, I shared with my husband to say, this is my dream. He immediately is inspired by the dream and begins to say, oh, so what's your vision? What is the message? Tell me, who is the audience you're trying to, and what do you think this will be in the future? And this is how we have this conversation. So it becomes his own dream.
Okay.
Last night he called me and said, oh, I think you should speak to this person. I think you should speak to that person. I think you should speak to that person. The same way he says to me, you know what? He just said to me recently, he said, did you see the results of JAMB? The kids that did JAMB, 1 million kids failed JAMB last year. And we can't sit here. This is the future of Nigeria. If people fail JAMB, 1 million children fail JAMB this year, that needs to be fixed. And he shared with me, he said, we need to fix it. How are we going to fix it? He said to me, let's have a project. Let's do this. Let's do that. He shared that vision with me. I've carried it. I have sat with him, asked him questions, started to fill the things up on my computer.
Each other's
burdens. And if it's your dream, it becomes mine. So it's not it's almost like having your second ear or your second head. So it's not his dream anymore, it becomes mine. So when he was running for office, it was the same thing. Came and said, this is what I want to do. I want to inspire other people like myself to run for office. It became my thing. I took time off work. I called my team. I had one of my finance team members who wanted to resign at the time. I said, guy, you can't resign now. My husband is running for office. You need to stay for at least this year where I'm supporting him. And he agreed to stay because he also saw the passion and he knows how committed I am to my husband. So we've not had that kind of, because we are both committed to each other's dream. One of the things I often say to people when they say, oh, my spouse is not supportive, I often worry about how well did we engage our spouse? How much do they feel like a part of our story? It's the same with our employees. How much do they feel like part of the vision that you are running? So if it's how you sell it to them. Are there times where one person has had to stop for the other? Not really. However, in terms of getting structural support for the family as the children were growing. So if I'm traveling, we never used to travel together. So if he's traveling, I will not travel. If I am traveling, he would not travel. We always found a way. And, recently our children have all left home and we had an opportunity to travel together somewhere. and we're still planning that one person should stay at home. And we all suddenly said, why?
Wait a minute, why?
Because I got so accustomed to it. It's like, because there has to be somebody at home. No, there doesn't have to be anybody at home on this time. So in a sense, yes, because it's really about supporting one another.
In as much as I'm really itching to get back into the whole business conversation,
Yes.
talking about building structure
Yes.
and also legacy, with legacy in mind,
Yes.
there are some other questions that I think I want to ask around family.
Tell me.
I think I need to let you know how much I revere you. I revere you so much, not because you're successful in business, but I think more because you're grounded in almost every other area. I think that's quite hard to find. In a world where success in many cases is measured due to monetary value, how much someone has, how many cars she's riding, and how many more things, I measure success through things that money cannot buy. And which is the gift of people, and also the fact that your success must have a trickle-down effect on your family. I think one of the most amazing things about you and FD is that you've raised amazing children. And this is important. I heard FD at a particular conference speaking, and he made a statement. He said, you have 3 boys. He said that your 3 boys broke a record in secondary school. I think I remember getting home telling my wife, I'm like, who are these people? Your 3 sons broke a record in secondary school. Correct me if I'm wrong.
All head boys.
They all became head boys. All in secondary school. If it were a fluke, it might happen once. If it were father and mother's name motivated, it could have happened twice. But it happened 3 times, which means, number one, the school authorities couldn't have been foolish all 3 times. And then, or number 2 also, it would have meant that there's something special that must have been drummed into them, some certain values that they must have inculcated. It seems as though there's just something that happens in the Durotoye home that has wired your children to take initiative, because I believe so strongly that one of the greatest aspects of leadership is proactiveness in taking initiative to do things. So a bit of the nature-nurture arguments where people say some people are born leaders or you are trained to be leaders. I kind of lean a little bit more towards nurture than nature. I want to hear from you. Growing up, did they all grow up with initiative? Did they all grow up wanting to lead people? Did they all grow up wanting to take the next step and go the extra mile where other people don't? Talk me through it.
So first of all, I didn't even realize that they were all head boys. Like I didn't
dawn on you.
No, I didn't. I think maybe I heard someone reference, maybe a teacher reference it. Oh, all your 3 children. And I was like, oh, it's true.
Oh my.
Yes, because it's not a thing for me. Positional leadership is not a thing it's great. I think it helps children to develop, some kind of leadership skill, but you don't have to be head boy to be a leader, right? So I wasn't fascinated by that. And I haven't always been. I think the things that fascinate me more is when I hear reports about my children being respectful, being kind, being thoughtful, being considerate. And those are the things that inspire me. I just left my oldest. We were in England together, and we were on the train. We got out the train, and I could see him watching a woman who was carrying a pushchair. A man, actually, not a woman. Pushchair down the stairs, and I could see he was consciously looking to see whether the man would need support. Even though he was having a conversation with me, his side eye was looking. Immediately, he realized the man would need help. He ran for it. This is the child that I raised. Thoughtful. My last was a lady came to clean the house. And as I was walking out of the house, I overheard him say to the lady, would you like me to put on the air conditioning for you because it's hot here? And the lady assumed a bit startled because she doesn't, he just came back from school, so she hadn't seen him before. They could see that she was struggling to respond, like, why should I say yes? Or should I not say yes? He now said, no, if that makes you uncomfortable, that's fine. But I'm here. If you need anything, just let me know. Now, this is someone who came to clean the house. Why are you asking her if she needs anything? That is, for me, That is what is important. So positional leadership was great that they were at the school and they were leaders, but I think what amazes me more about my kids is that they are good human beings.
Raising children in the 21st century is already hard enough, right? Now, raising 3 boys
Yes.
and raising them to be virtuous, right, must have taken quite a lot from you.
Yes.
I want to know if you have any tips for new parents, okay? Those who are expecting children in a not too distant time from now, like myself.
Yes.
I miss many other people perhaps will be listening now. Yes. What were some of the things you had to put in place as guardrails while raising these boys? Because I believe so strongly that without intentionality and an extra effort to raising these children,
they just become
almost anything. Yeah. So tell me, what were some of the things you had to do? What were the principles you probably had?
I think first of all, I would like to say to young parents that the first thing is your example. Children are going to do what they see you do,
and not what you tell them to do.
No. So I started to see, as they've gotten older, I'm seeing so many things that I don't even remember saying to them, but they are now leaving. I walked into a room with one of them and he was kneeling down on the bed. There's a way I pray. There's a way I kneel when I pray. I squat over the bed like that. I've never told my sons to squat over the bed to pray. I just walked into a room and I saw him squatting over the bed. That is just based on what he saw, the visuals that he saw. So I think the first thing is parenting will be a school of character development. So if for any reason you've struggled with some of your personalities, whether it's the fact that you're rude to people, whether it's the fact that you're unkind to people, whether it's in times that you are harsh or you are discourteous, this will be the time to start to practice better character. Because if you don't, your children are going to copy exactly what they see you do. That's one. Two, I was quite a disciplinarian. And I think it's important to discipline your children. And I would be tired, but I would tell myself that I must talk.
It will be worth it in the end.
Yes. And sometimes I even say to them, you people don't have what it takes to frustrate me.
Oh my!
When a mother says that to you, it means that she's frustrated.
I know.
Because there were 3, right? So they were like, when you put them together, you can be sure and guarantee that there's going to be trouble, right? So sometimes I would often say to them, you cannot frustrate me because I'm actually frustrated. I'm frustrated with the fact that you said to them, don't do this thing and they did it. Don't put this thing here and they put it there. But I've sat down now and I've watched them. One of them graduated recently.
By the way, congratulations.
Thank you. And when I saw how parents of his friends were looking for us, Caucasian, one was Filipino. Please, my wife is here. Can you come with us? And I was meeting them for the very first time when his child was graduating. And one of them she actually did a frame and put a Nigerian flag on it and handwritten a note to him with pictures of him and their son throughout the 4 years that they were in college. And the reason why they did that was because my son had left an impression on them. For me, it was hard work to get there. I would say again to parents, talking, don't get tired of talking. It will work. So I looked now and realizing that some of the talk worked. Not everything has worked, but a lot of it, significant portion of it.
Most important part.
Yes. I was with one of them and he was cooking. He was the one that made my meal. Wake up in the morning, Mom, what do you want to eat today? Can I make you quinoa? Can I make you this? I'm concerned about your diet. I'm not sure if I can you show me? Just show me, give me some recipes and I will make the food because I eat specific things. But he cares enough to want to know what the recipes are so that he can make it. And I told him, I said, don't worry, anything you make, I will eat it. But this is a child where they complained that I used to wake them up at 3 a.m. to go and wash their plates. I will wait. If they finish, then when they have gone to bed and they decide not to wash their dishes, then when I now wake up at 3, I will now wake them up and fire everybody downstairs. But guess what that has done? When you hear them talk about the importance of having a clean room, All three of them. Oh, Mom, I can't stay with anyone who's dirty. My roommate has to be clean. And just like, how did we get here? Because I insisted on speaking. Lastly, their father was very present. Very, very present. Very present father. First of all, as an example by himself.
Yes.
But very driven by values. So we had a set of family values that each child had to memorize and recite every single day.
Wow.
Yeah. And those values, they repeat over and over again. It's our family creed. They had to because their father insisted. So if he took you to school, you will recite the family creed in the car. I feel like one of them is I'll be a solution, another part of the problem to be solved. So it meant that if any of my children went somewhere, they think about it. When you leave a room, I'll be a solution and not a part of the problem to be solved. And that fixes your mindset. They're not perfect kids, but it's nothing as great as sending them off to someone's house. And when you send them off, you have a shorty that the people are going to give you a positive response as to how they've been.
I think this is brilliant. For deeper reasons, I think for me, because I don't know if you'd agree to this, but it almost seems as though for many overwhelmingly successful people around the world, people who have broken barriers, influenced territories, shifted a lot of things around the world. For many of them, we've seen examples and different cases where the family takes the hit.
Mm-hmm.
Family suffers for the glory that other people enjoy, where they inspire millions globally, but the family, which is the most immediate environment, don't.
Listen, we have to be intentional. So my children have traveled to almost every state in Nigeria because when I had makeup job, I took my children. Yes. Today, when my husband goes, if any of my children is in Nigeria and he's going to speak anywhere, I ask the PA to say, ensure that the ticket is bought for this person. Why? Because I don't want somebody to bump into me on the street and say, your husband is the one that taught me how to tie my tie. I was the protocol officer when he came to my church, and he's the one that taught me how to iron my shirt. And this happens to me all the time. People stop me and say of some of the practical things that they learned from interacting with my husband. But if you're not careful, your children will not have the same experience. So what did I do? I insist, and its intentionality is remembering that, please, can you send me where Eddie is speaking in the next 3 weeks when this boy is going to be at home? And they send it to me. Unfortunately, none of them is Lagos, Ibadan, Port Harcourt, Akure. It doesn't matter. Or you had buy tickets. He will be on the same flight. Let him be the one that carries his father's Bible and his father's laptop bag. And after a while, when they go, because what they do is that when they spend time with him, they see how he treats people. They see how he interacts at the airport. They see how he honors people. These things, he may not be able to teach them at home because the scenario didn't exist. They also see how he speaks on stage and how passionate he is about the country. My children are patriots, all three of them. Like, when you say patriot, like, they are patriotic. Just like their father, like their parents. My last son said to me when I was coming to visit him, he said I should bring X number of things, Jemugari, this, that, Nigerian flags, big and small. Because it was in September, October was coming. He said, send me small flags and big flags. That's why my second son, when he was graduating, his friend's mother still gave him a thing and put a Nigerian flag in it. Because they're patriots. And the reason why is because that's what they're exposed to. Both the good and the bad. Right? So there has to be intentionality. My children traveled with me. My son went to Gili with me. I was on a campaign with one of the companies I was working for as a makeup artist. And he traveled with me. I took him to those places because I didn't leave him at home. It was not convenient. It wasn't convenient, but I had to because it became clear that if I didn't, I would just wake up one day and find out that, who are these? Who are these? So it may not be your style. You may not, you may have a 9 to 5, for example. You may not be able to, but you have to find a way of doing it.
I think if I were to summarize this in one phrase, I would say for the Fela-Durotoyes, the charity, quote and unquote, begins from home.
For sure.
In the bid to transform lives around the world, you've painstakingly paid attention to ensuring that all those under your roof start or begin by being transformed before you look to do that to every other person around the world. And I think that's very inspiring, at least even for me myself, who is the process of beginning my own family, right? So many more things and gems that I've gleaned from that, and many more I'll do, obviously, behind the camera. And I think it's inspiring. But I want to get back into business now. I want to talk about House of Tara a lot deeper. A friend of mine who has been able to build a multinational worth hundreds of millions of dollars once told me something several years ago. We just had a random conversation about business. And then he looked at me and said, Shola, what type of business do you want to build? Do you want to build a lifestyle business, or do you want to build a proper business? It was my very first time hearing the word lifestyle business. And then later on, after digging deeper, I realized that a lifestyle business is what 99.5% of Nigerians do. They build businesses that can fund them, businesses that can take care of their families, businesses that can give them a suitable lifestyle. And whether we like it or not, that kind of creates a bit of a foundation. And like I always tell people when I go around to speak to business owners on building the right structure, I tell them stuff like, it's impossible for you to build a skyscraper on a 2-bedroom flat foundation. I set the foundation because if you get into building a business with that kind of mindset, in one way or another, already defines and gives direction to how you build. But for you, building...
How you build.
Yes, how you build. How you build. But speaking to someone like you who has been able to build something that is daring, not only building something that hasn't been done before, but building in such a way that you could one day exit. Which, oh, by the way, whenever we give kudos to all that you've done, I need to let you know, man, that we're not doing it just because it's the right thing to do. We're doing it because I think it's all inspiring. I'll tell you why. Particularly in Nigeria, as we speak, less than 1% of Nigerian entrepreneurs end up building a business that even lasts 30 years. Now, out of the less than 1% who end up building businesses that last beyond 30 years, very few end up building businesses that will live after they are gone. Right? You've been able to build a solid template. And I'm saying this because 27 years ago when House of Tara started, there weren't perfect examples, not just of Nigerians who were building something that would be transgenerational, but more importantly, there weren't female examples. But most importantly, there was no one doing this in the makeup space, in the beauty and wellness or hospitality or whatever space it was. Why were you different? And why did you want to build something different? Why did you want to ensure that you were going to build right, build properly, and build something that is very scalable? So could you talk me through your thought process and decisions you had to make?
Yeah. I think as a young child, I was fascinated by brands. And this is how I know that I was fascinated by brands. I paid attention to logos.
Okay.
I paid attention to fonts, colors. I paid attention to products that were being sold. And I have vivid memories of a brand called Tandy Guarana. So do you know Tandy?
No,
Tandy Guarana. Tandy Guarana.
No, I don't know.
So Tandy Guarana was a soft drink.
Okay, yeah, not Tandy. That's why I said Tandy.
No, Tandy Guarana.
Okay.
Tandy Guarana. That was the advert. So it was a very, very well-loved soft drink brand when I was a child. It's the taste of what La Casera is, but as a soft drink in a bottle that you pop open. Huge brand.
We're born in different generations, right?
Yes, clearly. And it was very well loved. And they would come with their truck and deliver in homes. So if your family had an arrangement with them, they'll come and deliver the soft drink in your home. So when the truck comes, they would come with the crates, they would drop it, and they would bring the crate into the house. So I remember that brand. I remembered Continental Cosmetics. They were hair care and cream brand, body care and hair care brand in Nigeria. I was conversant. I remembered Concord newspapers. So our home had newspapers delivered to our house every day. And at the time we had about 8 to 10 newspapers, right? Champion newspaper, Tribune newspaper, Guardian, Vanguard, and the likes. There was no This Day at the time. These were the newspapers, and there were lots of them. So when they bring the newspaper, it was a lot of load to carry. But I look back now, and those brands, many of those brands no longer exist, whether it's a product brand or it is the newspaper's publishing house. And it bothered me that they didn't stay, especially because I enjoyed them. My big Chandigarh Governor stayed because it was a subject that I liked. I remember Gold Spots and Limca.
I mean,
remember that one?
Yes, I can.
Limca, right? But they were all brands that I enjoyed, and I wished that they were still existing today. So I think that triggered something in me. So now I was building my own business. I wanted the brand to be able to outlive me, and not only because I also think legacy and I think long term, whether it's how I'm designed, and I think empowerment. I've now said it's not enough that I build a business that outlives me, but I think more Africans should do the same actively. Why is it that I'm different? I can't tell you that why I'm different. I just feel that it's sometimes you're having burden for something, and I was determined. And in building a lifestyle business, I moved from that to saying, I'm not building just for today. And the minute you shift your thinking around building for the future, not just building for today, the chances are the decisions you make are more long-term driven than short-term driven. And the countries of the world who have long-term plans, we see the impact of long-term plans on the culture of the country, of the businesses that exist in those countries, because they are thinking 50 years, they're thinking 100 years. I was committed, and because I was committed to it, it made it easier for me to bear some of the burdens that I experienced as I built on, because I was thinking, I have a vision, and that long-term vision is that House of Tara will be here long after I'm gone. And it was about ensuring that even within the business, everyone who was in every role was taught that succession is part of your commitment. So ensuring that in this role, if I move from here to here, the next person that takes over that role can do it. Because I put in the systems in place. I ensure that the systems work so that when you come, you can take over from me. And it wasn't just about me as the founder or as the CEO. It was about every role in the business. So we scaled leadership across because I had this long-term vision. Of course, I started very early. I didn't know that at 48, I was going to step down as MD and CEO of House of Tara. I didn't know at the time. But what I knew for sure was that I wanted this business to exist long after all the current operators are no longer in the business. I want all of us to be able to look back and say, this.
We built that.
We built that.
Oh, hi. I'd like to take a very quick break to tell you about something that has been a major game changer for not just myself, but for several other business owners as well. You know, for a while, I was actually struggling with managing finances, tracking expenditure, and curbing theft in my businesses. And all of my efforts actually proved futile until I was introduced to Budgetti. Budgetti is a financial management platform built for African businesses. And with it, you get to issue things like virtual corporate cards to your team, set spending limits, track every transaction in real time, and even get to approve requests instantly, all from your phone. Look, if you run a business, either big or small, all you have to do is check out Budgetti today at www.budgetti.com. Trust me, it will change the way you manage your business's finances. I'll do good to remind you at the end of this episode. Anyways, let's get back to the video.
That's inspiring. I'm just going to get a little bit deeper into the human resource details, because it is next to impossible to build a worthwhile brand and a business that will transcend difficult times without building with people. I popularly say, when people ask me, what would you say are the most difficult things about running a business and the most amazing things? I always say people. People. Building with people could be very difficult. And also building with people is also the greatest blessing. Be building a business that will stand the test of time. I want you to walk me through the details. And honestly, no entrepreneur will truthfully say that it's always been smooth sailing, particularly handling people. you have some who want to literally draw your blood out. On the other hand, you have some blessed ones who, by the providence of God, are burden bearers who will tell you, go and sit down, we've got this. I want you to talk me through the challenges of building with people and some of the great successes you've enjoyed building with people. How were you able to navigate some of the challenges? You know, there's a simple Pareto principle we also like to apply to training people, in the sense that you will find out that 80% of the people you train only contribute to 20% of your growth. And in some case, 20% of the people you train contribute also to 80% of your growth. And in many cases, being a successful entrepreneur is about finding the real 20% that will contribute to the 80% growth. How has that been for you?
It's been a tough, very tough journey of building with people. Very, very tough journey. And I think, but one of the things I decided to do early was to disengage in conversations that talked about how terrible Nigerian employees are. It was one of the first steps that I had to take. I found that sitting down with Nigerian entrepreneurs, there was too much talk about how terrible, and I'm sure you've also experienced that, that if you had to go, everything's about the employees. What that did to me was to begin to train me to think that everyone was bad. I made a choice that I wanted to minimize my exposure to what I heard that was negative and decide to create a new world where they are good people. I just need to find them. There are some organizations like corporate banking and what have you, where you get talent because you can pay. And that's the reason why you can pay. In our case, we couldn't pay the kind of money that banks were paying. And so it becomes even more difficult to find great talents. But what I committed to was, one, that I was going to build a vision that will attract people like a magnet, which will make people feel like I am part of something significant. Number two, I was going to identify people based on their giftings and put them in places where they can thrive, because the more they can thrive, the more they want to stay with you. Number three, I was going to reward them, and not just reward them in terms of monetary rewards, but other ways and other reward systems. Number one, I often ask, I take my time to find out what the love language of an employee is. And in rewarding them is apart from their pay, is also part of the things that make them feel good. So you can have an employee whose love language is words of affirmation, but then you give them gifts because they were outstanding. Unfortunately, they don't feel appreciated because of the gifts you give them. They feel appreciated because it's words. So I designed my leadership style in a way that I was very inclusive, but also I paid attention. First, it was the mindset around, I'm not going to allow myself to believe this myth that all Nigerian employees are terrible. I'm going to create a vision that makes it attractive for people to join, but I'm going to sell the vision to people so that they can see their role in it. I'll reward them for the work that they do, not just financially, but in other ways beyond finance, because not everybody is also motivated by money. Some people are motivated by other things. I mean, I don't find what those things are. And also give them a sense of the place where they are gives them a sense of fulfillment. With actively doing that, I retain better people. And it doesn't mean everyone was fantastic.
Yeah.
But those who were fantastic made it worth it. House of Tara won Jabba Place Best Place to Work some years ago. Wow. One of the top 100 best place to work in Nigeria. And recall that when I saw the news, I was ecstatic because I saw the work and here was the result. I just recently said to the MD of House of Tara that, there's a great place to work award that organizations get internationally. It's a global one. I said, one of your KPIs is let House of Tara get this. If it's in Nigeria, fine. If it's not in Nigeria, find how we want to get on the list and see what are the criteria for becoming a great place to work. Lastly, I am a Christian and it's my life. And I don't want anyone who works in a place where a disciple of Jesus Christ is that feels smaller because they came to work for me. our Christian walk is not in the amount of times that people know we pray. And it's not in the amount of times that people know that we read our Bible. It's in the example that we set. And so that also motivates me to want to create an environment where people can thrive. One of our core values is care. And people don't care about what you care about until they know that you care about them. And I was very committed to that. And this is what I taught my leadership. So some of the leaders who have done very well at House of Tara, some of the most caring. Recently, I asked one of them to say, I thought about so and so person. And she said, oh, she's doing very, very well. She's working in so and so place. And the lady had sent her recently a note. And the note said, I am doing so well and it's because of you.
Oh my.
And I remember this leader being raised in House of Tara. And I'm proud to say that the example that she has set, she's reaping the benefit of it. Interesting, very interesting. You know, this Japa syndrome.
Yes, ma'am.
A finance guy, he came to work at House of Tara in his 20s, grown in the business, left Nigeria to do his master's. And it was my birthday. And he sent me £500.
Oh my.
He's left the company maybe 6 years or 7 years ago. And said, oh, TMD, I need your account number in London. And he sent the money. And I saw the £500. I said, don't tell your mother you sent me £500. Because I'm thinking to myself, she's saying, the woman has money. And he said, called me and said to me, it's small money to you, I know. But this is just a token of my appreciation of all the things, right? And this happens to me more than regularly. And I look back on those days and I'm confident about the pathway that I took. I think it's a pathway that works. And I think if there are more entrepreneurs who see themselves as servant leaders, that I'm here to serve the people who are sent to me. See themselves as shepherd over a flock, and flock being the people that come and work in your organization. And see them as a set of Josephs, for example, who can be, for example, someone whose mother is praying and saying, anywhere my child did, let the place prosper. Means that if this Joseph is coming to my place of work, it means he's bringing a seed of prosperity to this organization. And if I see that way, then I value them differently. It means that I see them differently. I ask the right questions. And if we can scale that as a culture through the entire organization, not everyone will be that would be properly discipled.
Yeah.
You will have a few people who will not abide, right? However, you must always think about the 11 rather than the 1.
That's enough consolation
to keep
That's
it.
always enough consolation to keep it.
So if I start another company today,
Yes.
the question is, will this still remain my stance? Yes, it will be. Because I believe it works.
I think this is very fascinating. One of the reasons it is for me is that I think in many cases, a lot of entrepreneurs are quite selfish. They're so particular about individuals buying into the collective vision of the company. And in many cases, I think that servant leadership and transformational leadership should be also having people find direction for their own visions within
your vision,
that of the company.
Yes, for sure.
And
listen, I say to entrepreneurs, people spend so much time at work. I come at 8 o'clock and I leave at 6, sometimes 7. Every day, calculate the amount of time. It will be unfair for the work to be uninspiring. It will be unfair for the play. And when you put your name as CEO, it comes with responsibility. If you say you are the founder, it comes with responsibility. If you say you are MD, it comes with responsibility. And the responsibility is to lead the people who have been sent to you. Whether it's through the interview process that you got them, but remember that they were still sent to you. And how do you engage those people who were sent to you in a manner that they find themselves in your vision? Because they are still humans like you. And you have to ask yourself, would I want my child to work here? And would I want my child to work for me? And if the answer is no, then rethink it. And sometimes I've heard people say, well, the organization is not a family. So I don't believe in that idea behind family. In family, we still discipline. And discipline is a sign of love, but it's how you discipline. in a way that your child does not walk away asking themselves, did you give birth to me? Where they understand why they were disciplined the way they were. So, for example, what's the process of penalizing people for breaching of company policy? And there are times we've had to sack people because they stole, right? But every time we sack people because they stole, oftentimes they go away and sometimes write a letter back to apologize years after. To apologize. Why? Because they realize that the company didn't deserve that bad behavior. The question for me is, because of the culture of the organization, did people stop behaving badly? There were people who continue to behave badly. But I will still stand and confidently say that the model worked. Not everyone was caught in the net, but the people who were caught in the net were transformed by it. And I am positive that on their pathway, whether they've left or they're still within, they'll continue to carry that flag. And that for me is legacy.
I think that's amazing. And it kind of leads me to my next question, which I would like to call the crux of this particular conversation between myself and yourself. It's with respect to structure and what you've been able to build. So for context, House of Tara has grown to, I think, about 23 branches thereabout, if not more, and still count. Many more training schools and way many more things and all roundabout. And as someone who is very familiar with the challenges of scale, I know for sure that it is one thing, for example, to cook food that can cater to 5 people and all 5 will say, oh, the food is great, the food is nice. But imagine you're adding to have an extra 0 to that and making food for 50 people. Then you begin to encounter issues like, was the salt enough? Did I measure it properly? And so here's the point. It's easy to start by catering to 5 people, but when the number gets to 50, it becomes a whole lot more difficult. When the numbers get to 500, it's a whole lot more difficult then. And that's the major challenges with scale. A lot of enterprises scale prematurely. They feel they are ready for the limelight, but they do not know that limelight actually has a punishing effect for those who aren't ready for it. And in as much as the limelight, when embraced at the right time, can lead to widely acclaimed praises, many more things, and large commendations and all, we also forget that when you hit the limelight a little bit too soon, it will lead to
self-destruct,
crazy condemnation. And so I said all of that to say that for many businesses, it seems to be a major problem. And for you at House of Tara, particularly in the creative space, where it seems as though structure is perceived or seen to many as something that stifles creativity, how were you able to move from beating 1 face, 2 faces per time, 3 faces per time, to beating faces of hundreds of brides over a weekend, and ensuring that the quality still remains the same? Before I let you respond, for different industries, different things are obtainable. So, for example, sitting across me in one of the previous episodes of this Echo podcast was the CEO of Chicken Republic, Kofi Abunu. The very first time I met him, I asked him, I said, "Hi, Kofi. When I go to a Chicken Republic store at Yanokbaja, the way your spark tastes there is the same way it tastes when I go to a Chicken Republic store at Ikoyi." I said, "It might look normal to you, but it's mind-blowing to me how there seems to be no drop-off in taste and so many more things." And then he looked at me and smiled and said, "Well, it's all down to the power of the recipe and also down to the power of the simplicity."
That is exactly what I was going to say.
But for a different industry, I want you to talk me
So
through
you
it.
talked about jollof, you talked about the rice.
Yes.
When you make rice for 5 people. The difference is not that when you make rice for now 5,000 people, because there are people who make jollof rice for a huge party of 1,000.
Yeah.
And the reason why they call this particular caterer is because they tasted her food last year in another party, 1,000 people. And it is the reason for the taste of her jollof rice that she was invited for this same jollof rice. So if she can cook for 5,000 people, and it will taste the same, 1,000 people, and then you invited her for 5,000, she can still deliver. And the reason why is because there is a way. There is a step-by-step actions that deliver the same outcome consistently that she has embraced, which he has called recipe.
Standard operating procedures.
Standard procedure, because that sounds for some people, they may not even understand what you mean by standard operating procedure. It is that to break it down, is to deliver this taste of this jollof rice. That if I come here today, there's one jollof rice that was called Ghana High, for example. Ghana High was a restaurant in Unicon. And you go to that jollof rice place to buy jollof rice every day for 10 years. The reason why you return back there because it's the way it tastes. That taste is this is how we make it. Whether I'm here or not, anybody who takes this pot must know that you must put this amount of water. You must put this amount of pepper. You must put this amount of tomatoes. Take it back to makeup, for example. This is how we apply makeup. You can apply makeup and the outcome will be different. That is, you look at somebody's makeup, you say, this makeup was done by so-and-so. This makeup was done by so-and-so. How are you able to tell the difference? Because the outcomes were different. But the reason why my outcome stays the same is because I do this. First of all, I do this to prep the skin. B, I do this to put on the foundation. Okay. I do the eyes next. And I do the eyes this way. I use 1, 2, 3. This thing it has to be standardized. It's not just in even the makeup, it's also in the service. When a customer walks into a store, how do we greet at House of Tara? If you walk into a House of Tara store, every branch will say, welcome to House of Tara. It is how we want people to feel when they walk into our stores. So everyone is taught. So if I close my eyes and I'm a House of Tara customer in Lekki, when I walk into a House of Tara in Abuja, I should know that I'm in the same place. Not just because of the design of the location, but how the employees treat me because they were trained. So when it's delivering a service, you must have what are the steps that we take that delivers this outcome. Recently, I was speaking at a Scalable leadership conference, and I said to people who are in real estate, I said, you sit down as a real estate organization and you find out what is it that we do that gets customers to buy. And based on experience, when you talk to the customer like this, you give them this, you do this, within this time, you calculate, you've almost created a framework. And you notice that every time you do it this way, this is the outcome you get, which is somebody buys. That needs to be amplified, multiplied over and over again. That's how you grow. And that's why you can scale. So at the end of the day, for us, it is about identifying what is the thing that we do that delivers this outcome. What that thing is, the step by step, put it together and do it the same way over and over again to get the outcome. So it's about, first of all, identifying what the outcome is and also identifying what the steps are. You can call it a standard operating procedure. This is how we do it, whether I'm here or not. This is what I've done that works. So if I'm no longer here, I have to train people with the same step by step that delivers this outcome so that they can see it. They can replicate it over and over again. The only way we could start a franchise, a House of Tara franchise, was because we understood that this is the step by step. Every time you scale good, what the customers experience is the same in a different location. But when you scale bad is when the standards are different, which is why you can eat a spaghetti somewhere and it can taste the same, or you can eat somewhere else and it tastes differently.
But how do you ensure adherence to the strict operating procedure, particularly when dealing with many creatives who have little to no background with structure? And then also, we need to understand that in some cases,
I love this question.
In some cases, some of the creatives might have experimented with something else and so that it worked very well.
Yes.
And perhaps the client loved it.
Yes.
But because it's not in adherence to the already set principles, procedure, and process in play by House of Tara, particularly when you're dealing with your franchises.
Yes.
How do you navigate such murky waters?
Yes. It's a complex question because there are many things at the same time. But I'll start with taking initiative.
Okay.
So I'll give a policy. First of all, let's start with dealing with creatives. It's first of all about induction. The first 2 days when somebody joins the organization, it's the most powerful time of impartation. And the amount of time influence that you can create. And this is why I said the model I've tested works. I have done it bad and I've done it good, and I know the difference. Induction is so important. It sets the tone for how people receive and deliver. If somebody comes to work with the organization and you know how you go to a bank and they do induction, and then you have a small business and you think that it's not important to do induction. Listen, I often say to people, if you don't do induction, somebody else will do induction for you. But what you will realize is that somebody was inducted somehow. What they deliver to you will depend on what you let them do. So induction for us was very important. 1. 2, you have to recite the company vision. Every employee of House of Tara recites the company vision every single day.
That's interesting.
Company vision, company mission, company core values. To repeat it over and over again.
So I think at this point I'm going to steal that. So every single employee.
Yes. You know the vision of the company, you recite it. And you remember we're talking about creative people. Creative people have a tendency to say, I came here to come and do makeup. I didn't come here for this. If you didn't come for this, we'll tell you from the first day you joined that as much as you are creative, there is a reason why policies are put in place. This is why. The brand is attractive to you today because you've heard about this brand. This is how brands are built.
This is how we got here.
Correct. That's number 1. Number 2, tomorrow when you are not here, another set of people are going to need to come here. We need to preserve this brand for those set of people who are going to come. We sell it. But not just we sell it. When you now get into the job, we enforce. How do we enforce? We enforce by making you repeat. We have a retail book, for example, and that retail book says how you should dress, says what you should do, frequently asked questions. We've been doing this for a long time. So we know what customer irritates customers, what makes them angry, why we dress the way we dress. All these are part of the things that we're training. Then lastly, we penalize. So, and penalizing doesn't mean we don't love you. Penalizing means that we're protecting you from yourself. Why? Because if you do the same thing over and over again, you're going to lose your job.
Penalizing means we are protecting you from yourself.
Yeah. So I'll explain what that means.
I get it.
Yes, I'll explain it even further. So oftentimes people think that when you penalize them, it's because you are being cruel. But I think it's actually about the approach in which you penalize. That is important. However, if you don't penalize people and they get away with it, when they leave your organization, for example, and they go and start their own businesses, that they are unstructured.
Yes.
And they ask themselves, I spent X number of years with this organization and I didn't learn anything. That's different. Hardly do you find the person who leaves House of Tara to go and work somewhere else. They usually go and set up their own businesses. Yes. And the reason why is because they've learned so much about how to run a proper business. Because House of Tara was run properly. I can't come into any store and say, give me money from the till. I didn't do it. Because everybody earned a salary just like I did. I got alert like everybody else at the end of the month. So we had very strict corporate governance around finance, around human resource. These things were important. We said we're protecting not just you, the organization, we're also protecting you, the employee. Because the day you get fired, you're going to be sad that you got fired. But why did you get fired? Because you broke the rules over and over again. So we protect you by penalizing you today so you can be warned. And then we have a whole department of internal control team. Their function is to remind you. Their function is to do mystery shopping, is to do tests. And sometimes we announce to tell you in the next 3 months, so and so branches, all these branches are going to be going through mystery shopping. So in advance, you even know. But what do we want to do? We don't want to convert our doves into wolves. Why? You put the policy in place, you have somebody who's decent. Not everybody's a thief. There are people who are decent who come to work in your organization. But if you don't put policies in place, you can convert them to thieves. Because there is no way the money is traced or managed when sales come in. So, for example, for a long time, the policy until we had this no cash policy, every sale had to be banked by 9 o'clock in all branches. And you would penalize if you didn't do it. The reason why was because we didn't want to expose employees to sales. And sometimes founders and entrepreneurs are upset that people are stealing the money. Well, there's no structure around how money is taken, how money is delivered. When you pay the money into the bank, what do you do with the pay slip? How does the company know the money has come back? Who is checking it? If it's not being checked, then you can't expect people to behave well. The reason why we travel abroad and we align is because there are policies. You know that if you have a ticket, you can get a ticket. If you speed too fast, you go beyond speeding limits, or you park your car in a particular place. These are penalties that get people to work a certain way. So induction is very important. The first 2 days when the person works in your organization, you have to let them know. But you also have to first of all know.
Yeah.
And then after that, you have to make sure that there are ways for them to reiterate it to themselves over and over again. There must be tests done. So I was in a House of Tara store on Saturday to do my makeup. I was going out to function. And a young lady walks into the store, and she had a pair of earrings that were not part of the standard dressing. And I asked the manager, did you see this person's earring? She said, yes. I said, do you know the reason why she's not allowed to? Is she allowed to wear that earring? She said, no. I said, what's the reason? And she told me the reason why. But she said to me, the girl is new and she's been here for only about a month or 2 months or so. Now, I didn't let that pass me by or ignore it. And every founder, entrepreneur must know that you cannot allow to create and sustain culture. You can't keep quiet. Every opportunity you have, you take it to teach, reiterate. Because when people leave your organization, the world out there in Nigeria says, all this thing they've just told is nonsense. And they come back to your business tomorrow and you tell them these are standards. And they go out again. And what the world out there is telling them, this is nonsense. They come back. So we have a responsibility to be a university. It's not enough to be an entrepreneur in Nigeria. You have to be a value school to teach strong values. It's a responsibility. So being CEO, being MD, to whom much is given? Much is required. And requirement.
I think one of the main things I've gleaned from this conversation, and further buttresses what I've always believed, is that emphasis is important. Reiteration sometimes could look to us like a waste of time. Like when you keep hammering things over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, you just tend to think...
Let me interrupt you on that.
Yes,
I went to ExxonMobil. I was on a U.S. State Department and Fortune magazine program.
Oh, okay.
They identify rising stars from the continent. I was in my maybe early 30s. We're invited to the U.S. to be there for 6 weeks. And what they wanted to do was to get senior executives in Fortune 500 companies to mentor these rising stars. So they looked for developing countries, Nigeria, Palestine, Kenya, and they picked one person from each country. They attach you with a senior executive that works in Fortune 500 companies, so you go and be mentored by that person. The mentoring company that adopted me was ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil at the time only recruited first-class students, engineers. So you had to be a first-class engineer. Now, all those things stand for discipline. That means they are generally pick disciplined people, okay? So I go into the organization for my first day as a mentee to see my mentor. As I'm walking in, I pick up my phone and I want to call my husband. And the lady says to me, oh, sorry, you can't use your mobile phone while walking. So I said, okay. Then I put my phone down. Then I went to the coffee place machine. I took coffee and I held it and I wanted to go to where I was going to sit. And somebody said, oh, sorry, you can't go to the office with the coffee cup without the lid on it. It's not safe. So the person said, you can't walk and talk on the phone. It's not safe. So I've heard safe twice. I get into the meeting with my mentor. We now go to lunch. We go to lunch to a different restaurant outside the organization. So she invites other colleagues. Oh, this is my mentor from mentee from Nigeria. Let's all have lunch together. They take a table. They're all seated together. And then suddenly the manager or somebody senior comes into the space where we are and says, oh, I just wanted to let you know, these are the exit points if there is a fire, if there is this is what to do. And I was wondering why he was telling us this. Then they said to me, I asked, they said, oh, well, because we are ExxonMobil staff, we are obliged that everywhere we go, where our money is being spent, we bring our culture to that place. our culture of safety. So they must come and remind us. They didn't talk to anybody else in the restaurant, only ExxonMobil employees. Then I go to their refinery or something, and the car coming, and the people are talking and say, stop, whatever. You go to the bathroom. At the back of the bathroom door has something about safety. You sit at the table, there's paper. Remember, these people are first-class engineers. You put your foot on the carpet. The carpet has safety first on it. It was reiterated over and over again. I let them knowing why you can put an ExxonMobil child. The child does not work in, parents work in ExxonMobil, and you put them in a child. This happened to my own children. Their friends come and they get into the car and they refuse to move until they put on their seatbelts. No, auntie, we have to wear our seatbelt. Where is the seat? Please, can you not move this car? We need to. Why? Because they're ExxonMobil children. That's how culture is shaped.
Repetition births conviction. It's what you keep hammering
over and over again.
Over and over again. I think it's so profound. By the way, I can more or less even corroborate the safety story you told. My wife is an engineer, okay? And she's an engineer for an IOC. And almost every time, she always talks about safety moment. And then, in fact, they even do a safety moment presentation almost every week. Sometimes she handles that and she must say something safety related. Whenever she's offshore, anything, safety. To the point that it's become a part of her already.
Yes.
I think that's so profound.
Yes.
We've been talking for over an hour now.
Mm-hmm.
And as I begin to bring things to a bit of a close, there are some pressing things on my mind. And here's one of them. I've kind of noticed that a whole lot of entrepreneurs don't know when to let go. By let go, I'm not even talking about let go operations of their business. I'm talking about let go of when to step back and not being so thoroughly hands-on. So I'll give an example. You founded the House of Tara. Oh, by the way, House of Tara was founded when I was just two years old. I need to put that into perspective so you know how huge a thing this is. It was founded when I was just 2. And you used to be the one to beat the faces. But after a while, you began to get more people to beat the faces. Yeah. And after a while, you knew that for you to successfully run an empire and make it scalable, you couldn't just rely on your proficiency to beat faces, and you had to replicate that skill in other people, which was brilliant. And then later on, you needed to not just work in the business, but on the business. And that's very important. But I want to understand, I want you to tell me how hard that adjustment was, because by the time you're used to something over and over and over again, you keep on beating faces every weekend. And then after a while, you had to more or less let go. And then let go, let other people do it. And sometimes, whether we like it or not, as entrepreneurs, we're a bit like control freaks. And sometimes perfectionists. Yeah. We feel like no other person can do this thing better than us. Yeah. And it's a vital part of leadership, which is letting go. Yeah. Letting go and trusting in the capacity of other people as much as you also believe in yourself. Yeah. How were you able to do this with House of Tara?
Yes. It took me time to get there because, like many of us, we want to hold on. Unfortunately, you can't really scale if everything is dependent on you. In letting go, one of the first things I learned to do was to see the glory in others. To see that I wasn't perfect and I'm still not perfect. And extend grace to know that people will make mistakes. But the most important thing is, number one, how well did I train them? So training is going to be super important. And people often say, oh, you train them, they leave. Well, don't train them and let them stay and see how terrible your business will be. And so see training as an investment, not just in them, not just in your brand, but in the country. Because when they leave, they become better equipped people as they go out to do other things. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, after you've trained them, how much guidance do they get? So I've trained you, but I also want to do it and watch you and let you watch me do it. So you see how I'm doing it, and then I teach you. And we have conversations about why I did it this way, why I did that way. But at some point, I want you to also know that I trust you. And trust is so powerful. When you tell someone you trust them, they don't want to let you down many times. They feel emburdened. They feel burdened by the trust that you have. So you know what? Go ahead and do it and let me know how it goes. So after they've gone, they can come back to you and say, you can come back to them to say, so how did it go? And you ask. And by asking, the person knows that you care for their success and that their success is important to you. I know many people who said to me, it's because you believed in me that I was able to do it. I borrowed your belief from you because I didn't believe in myself. And then they go off and you get guidance from you. And they go off, sometimes they make mistakes. And when they come back to you to say they made a mistake, it's not a time to beat. It's a time to also remember that you also made a mistake as well. Not once, not twice. And you still are making mistakes today. It's to say, what was the thinking behind your decision? So ask your people. And oftentimes they may share with you a decision that they took that may not be the decision you will take. But the thinking behind it, the motivation behind it was what is more important. And it can be an opportunity for learning. It can be an opportunity to teach a lesson as well. But it's also an opportunity to trust them, to reinforce your trust in them even when they've made a mistake. This is how I've developed people. And I've found that the sense of ownership that they have, you have to beg them not to own anymore. Because they get so committed.
I think I've found this to be true with a couple of employees, where they get so committed. They're like, okay, who owns this business again? And it's just so profound. There was something you said that I think blessed me so much. Many a times for entrepreneurs, they're angry. We train many of these guys and they leave. But you said something like, I'm not just training just so they can just stay. Even if they leave, the country gets better for it.
They are better for it.
And they are also better for it.
Yeah.
And there's something I gleaned from Ikponwosa Osaki-Oduwa, Ike Osaki-Oduwa, who is reputed to be Africa's most sought after event compare. I used to attend some of his mentorship classes several years ago. And he said something so profound. He said, look, guys, it was a mentorship class for creatives. A large number of them were actually event compares, MCs, and a lot of things. And he said something. He said, I'm giving back to you guys, teaching you about a lot of pricing and many more things. The reason I'm doing it is because you have to raise your prices. Because it's only when you raise your prices that I can raise mine.
I love it. Enlighten self-interest.
He said, I have to raise my price. So I want you to raise yours. I think that's so profound, particularly when you are one of the major, or how do I put it? You're the apotheosis of success, the epitome of accomplishment and attainment in that industry, right? It only does you a lot more good when you see other people leave, go and establish theirs. Whether you like it or not, indirectly, your price goes up by reason of their own success.
I would say, maybe, you're a man, so you guys will look at price in terms of money. I will look at price in terms of value. So how you're seen, how you're perceived. And I think it also automatically changes also to pricing, to the value that people place in you. If the people who you trained, the respect, the regard, the reverence for you, you go to a country and you meet somebody who's a makeup artist and they say they trained at House of Tara, automatically does something for the mind of the person who's listening to say, wow, I'm here in Canada and someone is telling me about Tara. And maybe you even know me personally, or in some cases you don't know me personally, but my value in your mind has gone up. But this is not even why I do it. I do it because I'm a focus-oriented person, people-oriented leader. And I think it's important to develop people constantly over and over again. And to do this is not just for yourself. There's a value that you get, but you do it for them as well. There's a value that comes. And for our entire community, there's also a value that's a lot.
Thank you for that. I think it puts a lot of things into perspective. Several times when we tend to discuss other people's challenges, or people tell us exactly the issues they've had to face, and we always go like, oh yeah, I can relate. I think that's dependent on the type of case that it is, because there are some cases that I just can't relate to. And that leads me to one of the ones I can't relate to, which is being a woman. I was raised by a widowed mother. I saw her fight tooth and nail to ensure myself and my brother got the best of education and the best kind of lives that we wanted. And I think it was amazing. But I still can't relate to what it feels like to be a woman trying to build a formidable career for herself and build a legacy business within a somewhat patriarchal culture and a society that seems to be powered by men, for men, to advance the interests of men to a very large extent. You decided to do something very daring, not just by starting a makeup brand that had never existed before in an industry that was pretty much non-existent, but as a woman, you've had to fight tooth and nail to ensure that the prestige of that industry grew over the years. I know you've got stories for days. You've got stories for days. You've got encounters upon encounters that you faced. And there's some that you're like, you probably leave knowing they spoke to me this way because I was a woman. And in many cases, they spoke to me this way because I was a woman who was just building, right? I want you to talk me through how the journey has been being a woman building House of Tara.
So, first of all, I'm very blessed that I was playing in an industry that was serving women for a long time. So I didn't struggle too much. But when we decided to build the business more corporately, there were struggles around, for example, recruiting a man to be a general manager, who sees himself, for example, as somebody else's husband at home, and therefore find it difficult to
submit honor-wise to the boss.
To the boss. And then, but I think one of the stories I often tell is about how I wanted to the first bank loan that we were applying for, and I had got to sit down with the MD of the bank. And in the course of the conversations, I shared with him the vision of the business and how, yes, it was an unusual business, but I also said we had built a very strong brand. And if he called 10 women on the floor where his office was, 10 of them would recognize my face, 8 of them would have experienced also Tara products, and maybe 6 of them will have come into one of our makeup studios. And he was like, oh, wow. Right. But then when we got talking about how much money I wanted as a loan, and he asked me if I had a collateral for the loan that I wanted to take. And I said, well, this is the kind of collateral I had. I had my stock and the products were in the warehouse, and this was the value of the stock, and therefore that could be collateral. And they said, unfortunately, they wouldn't take inventory as collateral. And the next question he asked me is, why don't you ask your husband for a collateral? And then I said to him, sir, with all due respect, if my husband was the one sitting in this seat, would you have asked him to ask me for collateral? And he immediately recognized that what he said was not wise. And he apologized for doing so. But the question is, if I didn't say that to him, if I didn't respond the way I responded, he could have carried on, because this is a society that he's accustomed to. It is the reality of many people who are building, especially in male-dominated industries. And I can relate, maybe not as much as they can, but I think the generation after me and the generation after me, it'll reduce even more, because they speak their mind. They're outspoken, and they'll speak up, and they've also seen, and they've also seen the experiences that their mothers have had. And because of that reason, they will stand up for themselves. So I think that's going to reduce even more.
And another reason it will reduce in the coming generations is also thanks to the contributions of people like you.
Mm.
I think many times mirrors of possibilities don't know how influential they are, not just by speaking and acting, but just by what they represent. The fact that some young girl under the age of 10 somewhere in Nigeria now sees that Tara Fela-Durotoye has stepped down as the CEO of House of Tara and is going into greater things, and can now say, okay, someday I would like to be like this. And I think that's so brilliant. And moving on to more details about the succession plan, you recently handed over and you named a new chief executive officer. I think that talent ID is one of the strongest skills that a visionary can have. Your ability to spot not just a finished product, but potential in somebody, groom the person, maybe not with the succession in mind, but just point out yourself to the person time and time again, and then seeing where that leads, right? Now, before I talk about the new CEO of House of Tara, I'd like to ask you, what are the main things you look out for when you are at the recruitment table? When you're trying to employ people, when you're trying to get people to come and buy into the vision and express themselves within the confines of the organization, what are the main things you look out for when you're at the other end of the table?
Culture fit. So I think most of the time, the whole technical skill had already been tested by the time they come into me, whether they can actually do the job. So, are you an accountant and you know accounting? So, are you a finance person and you know finance? Are you an inventory person and you know how to manage inventory or, logistics and the likes? But after that, it's culture fit, because I think that people thrive where they fit. People thrive where they fit. The more you fit in, the more you glow, the more you thrive. If you go into an environment where the values are different from yours, so, there are people who, because, the company was very family oriented, or people who came into the organization, were not accustomed to that sort of thing. But I learned over time that you must be able to test against your culture. So what does this person, let's know you. Let's know the things that excite you and know the things that you enjoy. Is in you sharing those stories and speaking and talking that I'm able to decipher whether you'll be culture fit. And culture fit is as important as the technical skills. Because you notice someone can start working in one organization, and 3 months after you see them, they're like a shadow of themselves. Not because the pay isn't good, but just simply because they are not where they ought to be, and they're not in an environment that triggers their joy, gets them more and more inspired, because it's a fit. You know how you walk into a room, and oftentimes you walk into a room with male and female, and you're a guy. Many times you often walk towards where the men are. If you're a woman, you often walk towards where the women are. It's because they are the ones you feel most comfortable with. If you walked into a place and you heard someone, there were mixed people from all over the world, and you heard somebody who spoke with a Nigerian accent, the chances are you move towards the person who speaks with a Nigerian accent. And it's just simply because that's what you're familiar with. That's where your comfort is. So culture is for me about where your comfort is, and how do we ensure that as we're recruiting people, we're recruiting, and you have to know what your own culture is. So when the person comes into your organization, they are a fit.
There would have been a number of follow-up questions, but for time, I'm going to put that to one side.
Okay.
I want to ask you, I think perhaps my penultimate question, or maybe one before that. You'd always been someone who had expressed audacity from when you were young. You were going into all of this. But I think sometimes, even for the boldest of people, you have to get to a point where you acknowledge that you never might have thought in your wildest imagination that some of the things you now hold on to and have been able to achieve were conceivable, if ever at all. So, for example, House of Tara started in maybe your living room, and today it has grown into something that is studied in Harvard, for example. Amazing story it has been, and it's been such an exponential success. At any point in time, has this surprised you? I need to ask. Has it come as a surprise? How many hundreds of thousands of people you have inspired? How many people look up to you as a role model, and what you've been able to build? How many people you have trained in their thousands?
Should I be honest?
Yes.
I don't know whether it's going to sound cocky.
No, right? Like,
faith is you see a picture. That's what faith does. You see a picture. And the picture of what I saw is what is unfolding. So maybe not surprise, maybe gratitude that I'm actually here or that I'm seeing it unfold is what I feel, but not surprise. What would be surprising if I didn't see this? That will be a shock. That will be a shock. Yes.
It leads me to the next question I want to ask you. I think one of the questions I've been itching to ask is this. There's something about having a purposeful life, right? And having some sense of direction with what you do with your life. The beautiful thing about purpose is that it not only tells you what to do, it also tells you and gives you a nudge for what not to do. Which means that you won't be here today without some level of sacrifice. Having had to not do some stuffs that might have even been good in and of themselves, right? Things that maybe not have been harmful, but you just knew were not for you to do at that particular point in time. How many of them can you look back to and tell me the things that you perhaps had to forgo? Not because they were necessarily bad, but because they were not ideal for the kind of life you were trying to build.
From which standpoint?
I'm talking both life, in business, and in different areas. So, for example, delayed gratification. For example, perhaps having to cut off some people who maybe were naysayers, posing as friends. I mean, some interesting things. And some other times it could even been maybe having to let go of some relationships that were not necessarily in and of themselves bad. Or having to deprive yourself of some things just to ensure that you stayed on course.
I think what a destiny helper or a destiny breaker can be your relationship. And relationship meaning the person you marry. So there were people in my life who I could have considered, they were close, but they were just not it. They were not bad, but they were not it. And I look back today and I'm grateful that I said no so that I could say yes here. I was going on my walk yesterday and I'm going to be married 25 years in May. And
no small feat.
Yes. And I was yet again, I was in a place of gratitude and I was very, very grateful to God that I get to experience the love that I have from my husband in this marriage, the commitment to me personally, to me as his wife, to me as an individual woman who was born and put in this world, the commitment and dedication, the care. My husband said to me the other day, I picked up the phone and I called him in the middle of the night. He was in London. I didn't know I did this. I picked up the phone and I called him and I was complaining about the sound of a dog. And the dog was barking. And I was complaining about the dog barking, like as though I expected that he would come from London to stop the dog from barking.
Oh my.
Do you know what it is for a woman to be sleeping and then wake up and she's frustrated by the sound of a dog, and the first thing to do is pick up the phone and call her?
It means he has made your home a habitation of peace to the point that any slight discomfort.
What are you talking about?
Feels like.
I called him and I said, and the dog has been barking for 2 hours. And what did I want him to do? And just the joy of having that because I said no to someone else. And it may have seemed like this was fine, but it was not good enough. And the courage to say no is very powerful. But even in terms of, yes, like we talked about, delayed gratification, when the business was growing, I had to say no to things. I remember driving a small Toyota Corolla hatchback and going to someone's house, one of my friend's houses, and say, park that your car outside the gates, right? Because it was a Tokumbo small car. And I remember going to somebody else's house and I said, why are you still driving this car at your level? And then I said, well, the money that I was supposed to use to buy this car, I've used to buy a generator. Because obviously you have to generate your own power as an entrepreneur. It's part of the business model. It's part of the business cost. It was expensive, But I had to do it. But I think making those sacrifices were investment in the business capital so that when we wanted to expand, I was accustomed to adjusting, abasing and abounding. Today, I can walk away from the business and not feel like my life has ended. Simply because I wasn't one of those entrepreneurs who just wrote checks to myself. I had a salary. My salary was approved by the board. And I lived within the means that I had. And the business was not me, and I wasn't the business. And I could walk away because I had built streams of income that was outside of Household Tara. So Household Tara is just one of my investments today. And that's the discipline of being able to say no at a time. Because buying a Range Rover was not what the priority was at the time. Was to put the money back in the business. I think about, times where, like I said earlier, where to raise the children, one of them asked me, Mommy, is it difficult being a mom? And I said, yes. And the reason why the poor child asked that question is because they must have seen me so overwhelmed. I remember writing a note to an old employee who's now starting her own business. She's in Benin, and I asked her how she was doing, and she was saying it's very tough just managing the two. And I said, if you never forget anything, because you saw me when my children were small, I said, always remember that. Then Tara did it. Tara, they did it. They did it. They raised the children and they ran the businesses and their marriages didn't break. So I will not. I say, if you forget anything I've ever said to you, don't forget this line. It was tough to do it. But I also looked back and looked at the women like Mr. Olushola. And I said, they did it. They didn't break. I will not break. So the sacrifices that we have to make as mothers to be able to raise our children and build our business is possible because there are people who have gone ahead of us and have done it.
I think I kind of love how you've so much embraced the fact that you're an example to people. I think it's very admirable because sometimes people just live without that consciousness that other people are watching. I'm happy you've come into the fullness of that. And this leads me, as we draw the curtain on this conversation, at least for now, on the what next. So first and foremost, it's kind of hard to let go. The 27-year-old baby that is House of Tara that you've built and scaled to a national pride, you've let go to a given extent. There's a new CEO on board. There's a whole new team managing the directory and many more things. By the way, I love the fact that you've built something that can thrive independent of your physical presence, which is amazing in and of itself. And I think one of the deeper things I think I enjoy about you, and one of the main reasons I've admired you for a while, is because in as much as you're a pioneer for makeup and you've built House of Tara to that, almost everyone who comes in contact with you knows that there's much more to you than just the makeup woman. That's important. That's very important. And I say this because not many entrepreneurs have been able to do that. A lot of entrepreneurs have built their prestige and the acclaim that they get from people. They've tied it in and around a particular brand that they build, and therefore it makes it harder for them to transition and spread out, or perhaps pivot when it's time to go into something new. But that's different for you. Which leads me to the question, what's next? If I can take a wild guess, I know it's time to give back. But tell me and talk me through, because I know a couple of people are interested.
I think, first of all, I'll start by saying it wasn't tough for me to let go. And the reason why it wasn't tough for me to let go was because I had built the business in such a way that over the years, delegation was a skill that I had learned and not honed. And the reason why was because I was empowering people to do the work that they were assigned to do, giving them the liberty to take leadership. Number one. Number two, I also found that my business was not me. And my life was not all about House of Tara, that there was more to me than House of Tara. I developed those things. When I identified what they were, I developed them. For example, the conversation I had earlier about masterclasses for entrepreneurs on building structure and system, I started that project. And the project I did it as a side thing that I was doing while I was still running House of Tara. It took me on a journey of discovery, of finding that I really, really wanted to see more African businesses succeed, not just succeed, but scale, not just scale, but have succession plan in place. And if the founder decides or the current operators decide to exit, that the business will continue after them. I explored that as a possibility. I explored my speaking. Becoming a speaker became a thing. It became part of the things that I did. Mentoring became part of the things that I did. And I think many times people don't want to let go because they don't know what else they can do. Because they define themselves all around the business that they've been. That's where their sense of identity comes from. So if they leave, they then feel that they may not be able to do anything else. And I didn't have that struggle. So over time, number one, succession was a culture in the business. But not just was it a culture in the business, but it was also something that I worked towards over time. So by the time it was time to let go, I could. The challenge was when you let go, the person you're giving to, will they be able to handle the attention that comes with that handover? I think that's the area of concern that I have. What is next? It's building beyond you as an institution, the concept as an institution, creating programs that help entrepreneurs across the continent to build beyond themselves, award ceremonies around businesses that build beyond themselves, those who are going through the process of building structure and systems and celebrating them, and things around that conversation, and just being a strong voice around building beyond themselves. And for me, this is part of the significance. I'm still very young. There's still so much to do. Set up another business that is called SIP Africa, and SIP Africa is really about creating employment. More just trying to solve the employment problem, which is something that we did at House of Tribe, but I'm taking it beyond beauty.
That's amazing.
So spreading across multiple industries, but it's really about training people so that they can be able to do so. These are some of the things that are top of my mind at the moment. I don't want to say more than that.
I think I'm excited to watch every single thing unravel. I think I am. And I'm sure no matter what it is, even if you decide to sell Zobo tomorrow, excellence looks like something I'm sure I'll meet and find in whatever endeavor. And that goes to say, I think you're a very excellent person. I think while on camera or before we came on camera, I commended your oratory prowess. I think it was while on camera. I think you're very insightful. There's a strong connection between your flow of thoughts and how they come out. And I think that's very brilliant and profound. And thank you so much for a very insightful conversation. And just to wrap things up, final words. I take it that there's perhaps a young girl, let's say perhaps within the age of 15 to 25, who maybe wants to dare the impossible and do something that no other person had done before. I mean, hitherto. And they're currently at crossroads, doubting themselves, wondering how the world will receive them and how it will be perceived by people. Can you just give maybe a short counsel to such a person? If you were to have a one-on-one with the person, what would be the most profound thing that you would tell the person?
You were designed by a manufacturer. The manufacturer who designed you put a solution in you to a problem that the world has. That solution may be tied to this idea that you have. I want you to spend time to discover yourself in that manufacturer. And that manufacturer is God. He knows you well. He understands you well. Because when you've stepped into the world and decide to dare, there'll be doubters. Sometimes you will doubt yourself. But the only one place that you can be sure that you can get reassurance confidently is with the manufacturer. And so my charge to you will be to spend that time. I'm grateful today as an older woman that's where I found my identity. So it's not my husband that became my sense of identity. It's not my children that became my sense of identity. It's not my business that became my sense of identity. My identity is in the manufacturer. And because it is so, even when I'm going through a tough time, I can stand tall with my head up because I know that I have a backing. So that's my charge to any young woman who's out there, and young man as well, because I have sons. Or my sons are in their 20s. So the same thing I say to them often. My son is being interviewed, and I say to him, when he's being interviewed, I say, told me this and told me that. When he comes back to me and he wants me to reassure him, I often say to him, what did God say about you? Because there are times I won't be there to reassure you. But I want you to always know that the person that needs to reassure you is the God that will always be there for you. Those are my thoughts.
What a conversation. I'm so excited. And thank you so much for sharing from your depth of knowledge. And thank you for just being you. Thank you for giving back. You're giving me a whole lot. I don't really know how much you do, but the goal of all of this is so that in the next 30 years, if there's someone who just needs some clarity on issues and wants to draw strength from someone else's journey and the success that you've experienced throughout it, the person can watch this and glean something from it. And thank you so much for pointing out from yourself. And I'm so grateful and honored to have had you, TFD. And to every single one of our viewers, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. And it's a pleasure to tell you that this has been yet another amazing episode of the Echo Podcast. And if you've had an amazing one, do not forget that clicking the like button will help us reach a wider audience. And also do not forget to follow and also turn on post notification so you'll be the very first person to know when next we drop another mind re-engineering episode.
I also want to give a very huge shout out to our media partners, Echo Bank Business, and of course, Propeller Media. Thank you.